views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are the content creator's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Essex County College. The material and information presented here is for entertainment and informative purposes only. It should not be considered as professional advice or a substitute for seeking professional guidance.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's me, Jon Inahuazo, and I'm back with another episode of LONER. So I just got out of let's just say I just got out of first year experience. And so let's just go ahead and talk about let's just continue on my conversation from last week. So after I told you about this, after I already told you about the Instagram thing, about how I didn't really like the Photoshoppers, all the videographers, last week I've told you that I've never liked those users who decides to make vague videos. That's actually another thing I forgot to mention. So those are just there's those videos where they just give you little to no details or information about it. It's like those users, of course, who just make videos and then just tell you to click the link in the description below, or go down and just read it for yourself. I can already tell you that video itself is already useless. It's like, if you're gonna read it, if you want them to read it, you might as well just make it a longer video. It's like, and that's just another reason why I would benefit myself from watching long form videos instead of short term videos. It's like, sometimes it works, sometimes there are concepts that work for like a minute or 2 minutes long, sometimes 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's like, it all really just depends on timing. It all really just depends on the concept and how much you're executing your whole story. So, like, if you have a story, then you have something to execute with. And if you don't have any scripts at all, then obviously your whole story is going to look terrible. But I wouldn't want to over-exaggerate that and say it's terrible. And that's just another thing I've learned out of today. So I've realized that even if you want to try to be professional, I also like to tell you is like, just because you use templates doesn't mean that you're going to automatically turn into a professional. And so if you're ever going to use Canva, if you're ever going to use Photoshop, like, is it just me or am I preferring to use Canva over Google Slides or PowerPoint? It's like, the only reason why I decided to use templates is because I wanted to look professional. It's like, I didn't really want to look like my own presentation itself. I don't really want to look like it's going to be another boring, generic presentation from college or from high school. And so that's just where I started from. It's like, when I started from Google Slides, I started from templates or stock photos. Now that I'm finding some templates that would work and benefit from the theme of topic, the only thing I will say is that at least I would try to one thing I'll say about this is right now is, like, at least try to modify your effects, try to modify as best as you can to make it look original. And sure, you can give credit to the original user, to the original creator who has done a lot to go ahead and say the template. Like, whoever just has done the template, maybe you could just give them credit. Maybe not, but then again, it all really depends on you. And that's why when I say tutorial videos are useless, I'm not referring to longer videos. I'm just referring to the ones who just, as I said already, the ones who just gives you a stupid mistake that realistically nobody really does. It's like, I've actually seen I saw a video once where there was this one guy who thought if you want a color grade, then you have to saturate the whole thing into garbage. It's like, who really does that? And yes, this is probably going to be my quote from now on. Who does that when really nobody does? It's like, if you know how to use DaVinci Resolve, then professionals. And I think I actually have an idea because of what I've said last week. It's like, over time when I've recorded this 2 weeks ago, I realized now I certainly have an idea of my next Rawless Critiques episode. So if you're watching on YouTube now, then probably just go back to my YouTube channel. And if you maybe just expect another episode of Rawless Critiques. And if not Rawless Critiques, maybe a standalone video where I talk about short form slop. So maybe I'm going to discuss more about that topic very soon. So if you want me to go ahead and look and talk more about if you want me to talk more about it, then, please let me know. And even if you don't, I'll still do it anyway because I may have a script or so. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say for that part. I guess now let's talk about my mental health because I don't really want to over-exaggerate and say that my mental health isn't going well. Let's discuss a little bit about my parents, about my family, because, look, this is one of the episodes that I've been waiting for. So remember the church episodes. Like if you didn't really like if you didn't really like that the topic that I've discussed about, then most likely that was like all I can say is that that after I recorded the bedroom episode, which involved churches and my own experiences with the confirmation classes and to take the whole sacrament, I've realized that this was one of the lowest views episodes of the Loner. So if you didn't really like that, then at least you can go on and tune in next week for something else. And that's why I decided. And that's another thing I forgot to mention, because I've also decided that because there's a bunch of exams, there's a bunch of term papers, there's like PowerPoints I got to do, an essay I got to do, a reflection. So it's like I maybe I've been busy to really do this week's episode, which originally would have been the story of XG24, and that he's my persona. So I don't really have my computer right now to give you some hints, some clues or hints, but maybe just in case if I do decide to make another episode, maybe I'll try and understand how to use this Rodecaster further and probably just try to use Bluetooth so I can sample you some audio files. Maybe just try to do something different with this show. And that's right. Again, that's where I tell you I want you to guys to suggest me what other topics do you want me to discuss about this series next. And sure, the Digital Outcasts may have discussed this first, but now I just really want you to discuss and just tell me, like, what else do you want me to talk about aside from autism, aside from high school experience? And so that's why this episode I want to dedicate more about my family, because it's not just I go to Essex County College and think and expect that I have a happy life. But thankfully, because I'm going to a park in Pennsylvania, I may retrieve my happiness back. And so that's just one of the benefits I'll talk more about. And hopefully that actually made sense. But aside from that, let's just talk about my toxicity behind my family. So once upon a time, I was born in 2006 back in Newark, New Jersey. And to this day, I still live in Newark, New Jersey, raised to my Ecuadorian parents. And maybe this would be appropriate if I give you a bit of hints of what I listen to, and maybe give you a bit of hints of what I really do outside of college or outside of campus in Newark. So I just live with my family. I have one younger brother named Alex, and he's currently 16 years old, and he just stresses me. Like, sometimes he does stresses me out. Even my father stresses me out as well. It's like, you can, like, imagine you wake up at 8 in the morning, and then you have to really hurry up at this point. It's like, now you just have to hurry up because you definitely have no time for anything. It's like, he can be a busy man all he wants. That I don't have a problem with him. But when it comes to me, it's like, I just don't really have any time to relax or anything. So that's when I realized, and this is just from when I learning on let's talk about self-awareness for a bit. So I guess I've learned this, like self-sabotage. When it comes to making a wish list, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to tell you what you can really do. I don't know what you can really do, but mostly a wish is like you want to imagine what you really want to buy. So if this is important to you, then go ahead and buy it. But that's not really but at the end of the day, it's not really an easy answer to suggest or to even consider the item without watching a few reviews and then realize you're still going to get confused. And so if you want to know more about that, then check out episode 3 where I discuss more about that. And maybe if you want to also consider the SLAO book episode, maybe watch that as well or listen to that aside from this one. Because I don't want to just rely on just telling you to go ahead and watch episode 1, because episode 1 doesn't always have everything that I've already discussed here. But if you still want to, just remember episode 1 has the most highest views out of all of this series. And I don't even know if this is episode number 13, episode number 12, but it is what it is. Probably this is episode number 12. I'm going to look it up after this. But anyways, my parents, let's just say my parents can be harsh at some points. They can be harsh. They can be impatient. And I'm not going to over-exaggerate that when I say that, because it's true. So sometimes when you don't have any lack of patience, you just have to hurry that person up. You have to blame someone up. And that's mostly my father, because sometimes he can insult me as well. You can just go ahead and just say to hurry up. And there's this one thing where he takes advantage of me, because whenever I have a day off, then he has his advantage to go ahead and tell me to go ahead and do work for him. And that's when I go ahead and start doing some chicken. Maybe I just sell them chicken or make some oil. And it's mostly cooking oil. That's what I'm specifically talking about for some restaurants, for some clients. he has his own business, he has his own stress, and so that's why his mental health. I'm not really discuss much about him, but considering all these, the assignments and considering my registrations, it mostly just stresses me out, and it all just comes down to what I really want to do next. And so that's why in fall I'm gonna focus more into videography, not just videography, but cinematography, because I'm just realizing that if Richard was able to go ahead and make his own music video and inspire me, again, go check out the film club episode because I've talked about that further. And if not, then I probably mentioned that, but in the most vaguest way. So in that case, the word of the day would be vague. But again, if you want to go ahead and listen to that as well, then make sure you do that as well. But that's just more of as optional, not a recommendation. So, anyways, and so my parents, as I said, you can also say that whatever they go ahead and tell me and just take advantage of me, sometimes it does involve work, and so whenever that happens, it involves miscommunication. And that's what really happens oftentimes, because whenever there's a client that only speaks in English, that's going to be the problem, because sometimes I don't really understand his issue. I don't understand my problems. He can care less more about me, even if he tries to care about me. But aside from that, I'm not just a lazy person who does nothing. It's like, that's what they accuse me of. And they just say it's the truth because I'm lazy and all that. It's like, even if I am lazy, even if I don't really do anything at home, why am I in college? Why am I really in college spending like thousands of dollars or even for a free education? It's like, there's this one common topic where they would ask you whether college, about free education. It's like something about that. Something about it, whether a college should be free, but then again, all the equipment that you buy isn't free, including the Rodecaster, even the 8 Mini Pro. You just want to go back to terms, but in this episode, or at least in this context, behind this one, I'm not going to talk much about politics at all. But anyways, I'm probably going to lie about that, because they also vote for Trump, and at the end of the day, we already realized we've made a mistake. We've made a mistake when we voted for Trump, and now we've made a mistake because now we got to deal with expensive prices from China. And not just China, but we're also just experiencing some expensive prices where you ever heard of The Price is Right? Well, I guess The Price is, actually, no, I'm not going to do a joke. I'm just realizing it's going to be corny if I do that, so I already saved myself from this bullcrap. Anyways, and so aside from bullcrap, I would also like to mention about my bird as well. Sometimes he stresses me out as well, because I think I'm just saying some big words, but sometimes he stresses me out. Sometimes because I say this, because whenever he tries to go ahead and play FIFA or FC Mobile 25, he just tells me about his memories. It's like sometimes he can tell me about how he pisses him off, and yet he's doing that to himself. It's like he's failing to realize how my brother can play video games all he wants because he's bored. And I'm completely fine. It's like, I'm fine if you play video games. I'm fine if you play violent games. But if you remember last time I told you about how my brother was over religious. So that one, of course, I'll mostly recommend you to go ahead and watch the episode where I talked about, just make sure you listen to Faith Without Blasphemy, because that's when I talked briefly about my brother. That episode is what I would recommend if you want to know more about him and his religious beliefs. Now, aside from being over religious about the Bible and all that, sometimes he's also just, this one person was overdoing things. Like sometimes he can exploit my preferences. And remember, I've already told you about Bodega, and if I didn't talk about much about them, let's say they're a pop rock band from Ecuador, or like from Guayaquil, and this is when I would like to transfer now to you to something that I prefer to listen to. So let's just say I listen to ballads, and you may have known. And if you're in Spanish, if you're Mexican, if you know any of the, like, I'll go ahead and mention the following 3 bands that you may have heard of. Los Angeles Negros. And that's not really racist. That's actually their name. Los Pasteles Verdes. Those are from Peru. The last one that I mentioned is from Chile. Los Terrícolas. And that last band that I've mentioned is from Venezuela. So if you know any of these 3 bands, then you might assume that I only love ballads. And in Spanish, it would refer to as baladas. And so that's what I do. And so sometimes that's what I do listen to. But upon just ballads and within South America. I also love to see the lost art of what Ecuador provided. And because of Musicoteca Ecuador, I would like to shout on him, even though he uses AI generated covers and some AI generated videos. Like, that's what I don't condone. But it says from him, he did restore some of the lost media, some of the lost content that Ecuador has made. And I'll discuss more about that very soon on the story of X24. So make sure to tune in next week because I'll discuss more about my history of music and how I got into music. But right now, I'm only going to be talking about. But right now, I'm only going to talk about the top. And so the most obvious parts of my history and my life, my not legacy, but just what I do. What I just do in at home. So if you ever heard of ballads, then maybe you might have not heard of that in Ecuador because nowadays, if you know Rockstar or Rockstar, they might have known this one song, but for copyright reasons, I won't be playing it. But you may know this one song called Muchacha Bonita from 1980. Yes, this song came from 1980, not from 1995, but most people who listen to ballads only know the 1995 remake, and I'm more obvious to say that because you can hear they didn't record this from the 1980s, they recorded this later on, and so I realized they made remakes, and that's what we often hear. So they have a bunch of hits, and we all know that, but we just don't know their underrated songs. And so next week, as I said, I'll discuss why do I prefer to listen to their discographies more than just their hits and their popular songs. And if you remember the one time where I said about Loveful as being one of the popular hits, they already performed that with a Telecaster. But again, I'm not going to suggest or recommend any episode on that. That's just going to be a brief mention, a brief reference. And so if you know what episode I'm referring to, then you know. You just know. So aside from that, we usually just listen to cumbias, techno cumbias, which I don't really like at all. So there are some genres that has fallen off, and that's just the reason why I don't have the same music taste as any other Ecuadorians. But not to say that I'm the same character who just says, "Oh, I'm different," and they just only play this, and then they only play the hits. It's like if you know Julio Jaramillo, then I know that as well. But that's only because I only know from one song. So that's already a red flag from there. So I just don't really like the music taste from there from the speakers. But then again, there's not really much I can do about it. But my brother does go. But my brother, he does know because he just plays his own thing. And that's just how when it comes to cumbia, I've realized I would probably I would soon find my introduction to chicha or cumbia. And that's when I realized the beginning started back in the 1960s. And I'm not referring to the whole history behind cumbia, but the whole history behind chicha. So Los Estelios and Los Mirlos, those are just one of the two bands that I mostly know about. And then when it came to Chacalón and into Nueva Crema, that's when I realized I started to love the guitar. And that's when I realized my favorite instruments were the electric guitar, and very soon I'm about to buy a PRS, even though I already have a Squire Stratocaster. But, they told me to get a Jazz Master, they told me to get a Stratocaster, they told me to get a PRS an SCC24. And according to Guitar Center, and at least Sweetwater, they recommended me to get a PRS. And so that's what I'm going to get. So if you see me in the music club soon, then that's just a hint that you're gonna see a PRS for the first time. If not, at least I'll own my first PRS, even though you might have seen some Yamaha guitars. If you're more advanced, if you know more about music yourself, and if whatever it is. But aside from music, let's go ahead and talk more about my stressful life. So aside from stress, my brother goes on and annoys me sometimes. He can also touch me as well, and that's just when I say it's such type of harassment. And there's a difference between sexual harassment and harassment. It's like sexual harassment is when you're just doing inappropriate things, and if you're trying to be inappropriate, then you can just be an S offender. And I'm probably gonna say that because maybe the editor maybe the editor won't even like this word. So let me go ahead and spell out just in case if you're not afraid of it. SEXOFFENDER. And if you know what that spells, then you know what it is. So that's just just in case the editor doesn't want to mention that because of the questionable content and all that. Maybe he probably edited out the one scene where I talked about the Brazilian incident. If he did, then that's the reason why. But it is what it is. And so, yeah, aside from harassment, he just goes out and touches me. He annoys my brother. He annoys me, and he can be nosy. And at some rates, it can be nosy whenever it comes to my musical preferences. And if it's not about his musical preferences, he can just annoy me with 3 homeworks, 4 homeworks, and then his football. He wants to play football. No, he doesn't want to play football, but he just want to watch a football game, and then he annoys me with all that. It's like I'm not really a football fan at all. Just because I'm Ecuadorian doesn't mean that I would enjoy or prefer the same thing as any other Ecuadorian or American. And then I remember this one time where I decided just because I love to eat French fries and like American food doesn't mean that I don't like to eat food from Ecuador. Not to say that I'm dealing with microaggression or ain't culturally. It's like when it comes to disrespecting someone's culture, it's not just about, oh, this is not how Ecuadorians eat. And that's one hand when I've mentioned that's not how video editors edit, or that's not how photographers edit, or whatever it is. That's just one example of what I also want to mention as well. So again, I'm already coming back to my Ross critiques idea. But yeah, sometimes he can annoy me, and then when it comes to just annoying him, he's just desperate to go ahead and he's just desperate. He's just completely desperate. Where he is mostly noisy. And when it comes to family dramas, I will not be naming my other uncle, because apparently I have another uncle who's cheating with a girl. Apparently there's an uncle who's cheating with another girl. In that case, so we have a wife, and we have the wife and a spouse. Apparently the spouse is cheating with another wife. But that's gonna be the only information I'm gonna give you, because the whole story behind him is completely dark, and then there's this sexual allegations that we're dealing with, and because of, well, not to say that he's a predator or anything, but there has been some problems, of course, because he looked at his phone and then he's telling me about how he has all of these apps that revolves with pornography, and so that's not really a good thing to talk about, but that's just what he currently has in his phone. But we don't really mention too much about it. But aside from that, that's when I've also realized he barely talks to me aside from helping me on his helping him set up his WhatsApp and all that. And then sometimes I just always listen to the same songs. Just when I say I'm just getting tired of it, it's like I'm just tired of hearing Leo Dan. And if you know who he is, then you may have known his popular songs. It's like there's a time and place where I would love to listen to his songs, but I just don't want to go ahead and listen to the same thing over and over again. Yes, I know their hits, I know what they sing, I know what they do, but can I listen to something else? And that's when I always wear my AirPods, and that's just when I discover I would prefer to go ahead and start making my own collection, and that's why I have Spotify. But then again, back when I did have Spotify, I didn't really have a reason why I would want to have Spotify. I just want to listen to the music. But aside from that, maybe I will probably go ahead and subscribe to Spotify Premium. But then again, that means already outdated, and even if I do have some Spotify Premium, am I really going to use Spotify the whole day? Even if I do, who knows? Maybe it may be possible. Maybe I might try to do so. If not, then I don't. And so, yeah, sometimes my brother can be nosy to the fact that he talks about about the other uncle, and then I just get annoyed because I don't really care about this whole drama. And that's when I want to say I do not want to get involved with any other drama involving with the Inahuazos or Solanos. And most of the drama is coming from the Solano family. The Inahuazo family, well, barely anything happens aside from just there's a whole family tree, but I think you can just say it's sort of confusing, and even then, I don't really want to discuss much about it because I don't remember as much as I don't really remember much about the family or even their heritage, and so that's just going to be the only thing I'll go on and say, and that's just the reason why I don't listen to Pasillos either, or Nekis and Pascals. I don't know what I'm saying either, but it is what it really is. And anyways, time now as I'm recording this is 1:48 p.m. I think that's just gonna be about it for me. So if you're ever stressed, then then just remember that it's coming from my parents, it's coming from my whole family, and I just wish I can get out of this house. Not just because I'm just saying that I'm getting tired of it, but it's like I've been getting tired of feeling that I have to rush over things because he's always busy. It's like there's this that's just the reason why I've gotten missed opportunities to get a car. I've gotten missed opportunities to get a job, and that's what I desperately want. But all I can find is McDonald's, and even if McDonald's doesn't want to apply for me, even if McDonald's doesn't want to accept me, at least I still have a job with my father, but even then it can be stressful at times. But that's just where the money comes from. And not just the money from my father, but it's also coming from college as well. So because I'm getting some refund checks soon, I'll be able to make the shows look higher quality as I said already. The more money that I gain, that means production will get higher, and that means the quality will increase, which means things will be a bit different, such as how I tried to give you a video segment. So hopefully you've enjoyed the Students First Festival thing, and I already mentioned that previously. I just, it's one of the first things I ever did, and very soon, because I'm going to be busy with music production and video production, maybe I just use this time to go ahead and instead of doing another video episode, that's at least a season finale, I'll go ahead and end the show off with the story of X24. And I wish this would have been a video episode because I already got sarcased. I'm almost done with the sign-off video. And this video is dedicated to let's just say the video itself is dedicated to the 1970s, 1980s. It's like, if you remember the time when television stations used to sign off, that's what I decided to do. That's what I've decided to do with the DaVinci Resolve. And I've actually finally got the DaVinci Resolve 20, the public beta version. The only thing that I'm mostly waiting for is either for a Mac Mini, M4 Pro, or probably a MacBook Pro. So even if I buy either of these things, hopefully I'm able to save money. And if I do save money, that means that there's going to be hope that I'll be able to upgrade soon, and that I'll be able to upgrade in the near future. And so that's what I'm trying to look for in my personal life, growth. But when it comes to my family, the growth doesn't really exist. You just gotta do what you gotta do because my father's is mostly hot-headed. That's just the only way I would like to describe him as. But aside from that, I think that's just all I can say. So my brother can be stressful. My main uncle Freddie, he can be stressful at times. But then again, he doesn't really annoy me as much. He does give me some life advices. That's just the reason. That's just the only hope I can give out of my family. So it says from that, I don't really like my brother. I don't like the way he acts. That's just why I prefer to be alone, and that's why the loner exists. And mostly another reason why I exist as well. And remember, I will be going to Donny Park very soon. So if you ever see me after in the gymnasium, which means I'm probably gonna have some more fun, better than the Dave and Buster's trip back in 8th grade. And I think that's all I'm going to be saying now. So hopefully if you enjoyed this episode, because next week we're mostly going to talk more about music. And so if you love music, then you'll know there's just more than Rockstar. There's more than just cumbias. There's more than just psychedelic rock. There's more than just rock and cumbias and all that. So if there's a bunch of discoveries, maybe I'll make a 45-minute episode, but who knows? That's only if I have time to record one. But aside from that, I think that's about it. So hopefully by next week or my 2 weeks, you'll expect to see the season finale of The Loner. So I'm gonna end the show off with this story of X24, and this is gonna be mostly music related with a bit of history and my own discography, and maybe I'll give you a tour of my own studio, the Ghost City Studio, and in that case, in association with Ghost City Incorporated, even though it's a real company, but I haven't used Ghost City Presents yet, even though we already have the Podcast Club Presents. But it is what it is. I think this outro is already going on for so long. I'm just gonna end the show off here and just give you guys a break for a bit. And so hopefully, if I don't see you next week, then I'll catch you guys in 2 weeks for one last episode before I go. So hopefully, I'll catch you guys once again in October. So thank you guys again for listening to me. And actually, I was going to talk about this. Now that I'm thinking of it, I realized I could just do an episode related to college rankings. So maybe next week, just expect a shorter episode. I'm probably going to film that now, maybe. So until then, next time, this is me, Jon Inahuazo, and I will catch you guys next time at the same time, same hour here on The Loner. I'm out.
This has been a production of the Essex County College Podcast Club. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.